What if everything you've been told about Meghan's royal future has been built on the completely wrong number? While millions stayed obsessed with that mysterious 90-day countdown, an entirely different timeline has been quietly creating an official public record almost nobody noticed. Place those dates beside each other, and the entire picture suddenly becomes far more explosive than anyone imagined. 4 days. Just 4. That's the number now making palace watchers wonder whether the monarchy has already revealed exactly how fast it can act whenever it truly wants result. And if that precedent really exists, then whispers surrounding Prince William's reported long-term vision suddenly seem far less like wild speculation and much more like a carefully hidden blueprint awaiting the perfect moment. The biggest question isn't whether change could happen. The biggest question is who already understands the process and who desperately hopes the public never catches on. For months, headlines pushed dramatic countdowns, imaginary deadlines, and theories that sounded believable simply because people repeated them endlessly. Yet buried beneath all that noise lies something far more explosive. Official paperwork, government records, palace announcements, gazette publications. They don't depend on opinions. They depend on dates. And those dates reveal a story refusing to stay buried. The institution countless people describe as painfully slow suddenly displayed remarkable speed during another high-profile royal controversy, raising uncomfortable questions about whether those same constitutional tools could eventually be aimed somewhere else entirely. That's exactly where this conversation becomes impossible to dismiss. Everything starts with one constitutional detail most people never even bother understanding. Royal titles aren't always tied to lengthy parliamentary battles or endless political negotiations. Certain powers still exist under the royal prerogative exercised through letters patent, an ancient legal instrument surviving centuries of constitutional evolution. That single document has repeatedly reshaped the structure of the monarchy itself. No public referendum, no televised debate, no nationwide consultation. Once authorized, prepared, sealed, and officially published, its legal authority becomes immediate. Suddenly, the claim that royal decisions must crawl through endless months of bureaucracy starts looking far less believable than many commentators desperately want everyone believing. Then came the case that changed absolutely everything. By late 2025, Buckingham Palace publicly confirmed that a formal process involving Prince Andrew had officially begun. That announcement instantly generated massive headlines, yet what countless viewers never tracked was everything unfolding afterward. While the media rushed toward fresh scandals, official legal procedures continued almost unnoticed. Only days later, letters patent received their date. Shortly afterward, the Gazette published the finalized legal instrument. From the palace announcement to the documented legal completion, only 4 days separated the beginning from the decisive constitutional action. 4 days, not months, not seasons, merely enough time for one extended weekend. That documented sequence instantly became the latest real-world example showing how rapidly the monarchy can exercise specific constitutional powers whenever every legal requirement has already been satisfied. That timeline has suddenly become the center of an even bigger debate. If the institution has already demonstrated this level of speed once, then every future conversation surrounding royal titles immediately carries completely different significance. Reports, commentators, and palace insiders have increasingly claimed that Prince William plans to oversee a dramatically streamlined monarchy whenever his reign eventually begins. Those discussions have repeatedly identified Prince Harry and Meghan as figures unlikely to regain active positions within the institution. Some commentators even argued ceremonial styles and privileges could become early priorities during a future reign. Whether every prediction ultimately proves accurate is almost secondary beside the constitutional question itself. The mechanism undeniably exists. The recent precedent undeniably exists, and that combination alone has fueled speculation unlike anything witnessed throughout recent years. Then another unexpected twist pushed the mystery even further. Public statements surrounding the children's titles seemed to evolve over time, and that shift became a major talking point itself. Earlier remarks stressed that the decision rested entirely with the institution, suggesting there was little authority beyond palace procedures. Later statements described the matter as having been settled alongside Buckingham Palace. Those two explanations left royal observers wondering whether the process had always been as straightforward as originally presented or whether significant negotiations had quietly unfolded behind closed doors. The wording shifted. The timeline remained difficult to explain, and whenever official language changes while public documentation remains incomplete, speculation naturally grows louder. Silence inside royal circles rarely ends controversy. More often, it only feeds it. But perhaps the greatest misunderstanding involves the enormous difference between titles and constitutional offices. Countless dramatic headlines mash everything into one giant prediction. But the legal framework tells a far more complicated story. Certain royal styles can be changed through letters patent under the royal prerogative, exactly as demonstrated in the Andrew case. Other matters, however, belong to an entirely different constitutional category. Peerages, statutory positions, and changes involving legislation cannot simply vanish because a monarch signs one document. Parliament becomes part of the process, and parliamentary timetables move very differently from royal administrative decisions. Suddenly, the conversation divides into two completely separate clocks. One might move within days, while the other could require far longer. That distinction changes absolutely everything, even though countless headlines keep pushing the simpler version. As discussion surrounding Prince William's future reign continues, commentators have repeatedly suggested he envisions a dramatically smaller working monarchy. Those reports have fueled endless debate over which powers could be exercised quickly and which constitutional barriers would remain firmly in place. The documented Andrew timeline demonstrated remarkable speed for one category of action, while the unanswered questions surrounding Archie and Lilibet illustrated how another issue unfolded across many months. Two situations, two different timelines, two completely different constitutional realities. That contrast explains exactly why so many royal analysts continue examining every official announcement, every Gazette publication, and every palace statement with extraordinary attention. They aren't merely watching personalities. They're watching constitutional mechanics unfold in real time. Once both timelines are placed beside one another, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. One file moved from announcement to completed legal publication within only days. Another title-related question remained publicly unresolved for months before the language surrounding it finally appeared to settle. Whether those situations involve different legal requirements or entirely separate constitutional mechanisms remains the subject of continuing debate, but the documentary record itself has encouraged much closer examination. The numbers speak loudly without any help. One process demonstrated exceptional speed. The other appeared surrounded by uncertainty. That difference continues generating questions whenever discussion turns toward the monarchy's future and the scope of powers available to a new sovereign. And that brings everything back to the question quietly hiding beneath every headline. If certain constitutional powers can clearly move with remarkable speed while others demand legislation and much longer procedures, then every dramatic prediction about a future royal shake-up deserves much closer scrutiny. The official documents reveal that not every royal action follows the same path, and understanding those distinctions may matter far more than any sensational countdown spreading online. Until every unanswered question surrounding the public record receives complete clarification, debate will continue. The timelines remain documented, the legal distinctions remain documented, and the mystery surrounding how those constitutional tools might someday be used continues provoking intense discussion because, ultimately, the loudest part of this entire story may not be what has already happened, but what the official paperwork still refuses to completely explain. As long as those unanswered questions remain, palace watchers will keep hunting for the missing pieces, convinced that somewhere between documented fact, constitutional procedure, and carefully chosen public statements sits a much bigger story still waiting to fully unfold.